Edgware Road is known for restaurant after restaurant after restaurant, but the one thing they all have in common is that they're all halal. Now, did you know that 15% of meat in the UK is halal certified? Does that scare people? Do people have a fear that Muslims are now taking over? I'm not sure, but in Denmark and in Holland, it's interesting to know that they've banned the export of halal meat. So I think we should hit the streets, get some opinions from the general public of what they think on this issue. There's a restaurant advertising that it's halal. Does that affect your decision in actually sitting there and eating their food?
It doesn't matter to me whether the restaurant sells halal meat or not. If it's halal meat, I'll eat it. If it's normal meat, I eat it. I don't care. Meat is meat to me.
15%. I think it's a bit too much because it's not a traditional thing in here and all over Europe. So I think we should take a bit more care of preserving what we already have.
So keeping in mind everything that you've just said, would you eat in a halal restaurant?
I'd definitely eat in a halal restaurants, but I don't think it would be right for all restaurants to be halal. You know, have halal restaurants, have other restaurants as well.
He said that 15% is too much. How can 15% be too much? 15% is nothing. Then off camera, he mentioned that, he said to me that, look, you're a British Muslim, but British comes first. You're British before you're Muslim. So what that means is you should be open to trying pork. Forgetting that Britain is now actually a secular state. It's not a Christian state, it's not a Jewish state, it's not a Muslim state. It's actually a secular state, which means that we can all live in the same country as a Muslim, as a Jew, as a Christian, and respect each other's religious beliefs. Now we're going to go meet a young imam who lives in London to get a better understanding to what halal actually is. They're banning halal meat in more and more countries. Do you think that it's a fear of Islam, that because it's an Islamic concept it's wrong, or do you think that they've studied it and they've come to the conclusion that it's bad for society?
I don't think anyone who's studied what halal is can come to the conclusion that it's something which is harmful for your body. I mean, personally, I know the method of slaughter in Islam, which is ultimately halal, or anything that's halal. It's for your own well-being. It's for your own betterment, you know, for your own physical well-being. So anything that is halal, in essence, it means clean, basically.
So for argument's sake, just forget the word halal or the concept halal. If you want to eat meat, at the end of the day, you have to slaughter an animal. So what's the difference between the halal concept of slaughter, or rather the halal method of slaughter, to a normal method of slaughtering an animal?
Well, there's not much difference, to be honest. Most of the slaughterhouses in the world, generally, they slaughter in the same way that Islam prescribes. The method is that you slaughter at the neck. You hit the jugular vein first so that you drain all the blood out, but you don't cut the sensors which are attached between the brain and the heart, so that the messages can be sent from the brain to the heart to pump as much blood out. Because obviously when a wound is made, the blood has to be pumped out in order to heal the wound. So when the blood is all pumped out and the brain is sending those messages, when all of it has been bled, then the entire neck is severed from the body. And that is the method of slaughter that Islam prescribes. And on top of that, you invoke the name of Allah, which in essence is a sort of, taking permission from God Almighty to slaughtering an animal and making him go through some sort of pain and seeking forgiveness, but at the same time seeking permission to use that animal for consumption.
Today we are on our way to Oxford to visit a halal slaughterhouse to find out a bit more about the concept of halal. So let's see what happens. We're here in Willowbrook Farm with Mr. Lutfi, and he's going to show us around and hopefully answer some of our questions.
Your issue is about the large-scale slaughter, and this is the hypocrisy. In Denmark, battery chickens, factory farming, mass slaughter is all allowed, yet they seem to have an objection to kosher and halal. I think it's a question of getting your priorities, and yeah. There's a lot of hypocrisy, and it's motivated by just xenophobia. So there's that relationship with the animals that you have to maintain. They have to trust you, you have to look after them, and you have to produce a natural type, healthy product, and then thank Allah for it with the slaughter.
So we're on our way back from the farm. It was a very interesting visit, learnt a lot, especially because when you think of the concept of halal, you only think of the way the animal's killed. You hardly hear about the upbringing of the animal, whether it's fed properly, whether it's looked after properly. So we learned a lot from Lutf in Oxford. And now we've got in touch with a scientist who works in Hammersmith Hospital. We just want to know now, rather we're going to ask him that scientifically, is there anything wrong with the method of halal slaughtering?
There are obvious advantages of draining the blood completely. So the reason why we are slitting the neck with a single swipe is so that all the blood is lost. If all the blood is lost, then the infectious material doesn't come in contact with the meat. That means that the meat is likely to be of higher quality. Obviously, science needs to prove this, but it's more likely that the meat will be more healthier if there is no blood or any trace left.
So what we've learned is that the method of halal slaughtering is not bad, it's not something that you should fear. In fact, it's good for society, it's good for your health, and it's good for the animal in general. But what we want to tackle next is that when a restaurant labels itself to be halal, why do Muslims disagree with it and in fact argue between themselves that this is halal or this is rather not halal, so we're not going to eat from here?